beautiful Jewish thing. Not only is it beautiful, but it's fundamental in Jewish life. Not only is it fundamental, it goes way back to literally the beginning of us as a people. Meditation was part of who we are. Others have tried to, I wouldn't say, but come up with this idea as if it's their original, but definitely not. So, as the good old saying goes about a woman who comes up to the Himalayas, is trying to get up to the top of the mountain, and she wants to meet the guru. Good evening. How are you? She wants to meet the guru up there. So she goes up. And we're just getting started. And she finally gets towards the top of the mountain, and she's told she has 8 words to say, no more. 1 line maximum. She gets up and she sees a guy there, feet folded, sitting on the ground, meditating. He walks over to him and says, Moshe, please come home. Idea is that there are many who are looking because the soul is thirsty. Many are looking for life juice in Judaism, as you can call it. You're looking for that vigor and fire. We're looking for that meditation. And because many may not know that we have the ultimate and best within our own Torah life, so some go looking at other places. And we'll recognize what is the beauty, at least today we'll get started in this idea of meditation. And we'll learn that meditation is not only something that one utilizes at times or in times of need, but rather is transformative to any person at any given time. So who you go? You know the story? The guy, his rabbi walks over to him after the Amida and welcomes him and says, Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. He says, what do you welcome back? I'm here every day. You've seen me for the last 6 months every morning. So where are you welcoming from? He says, well, I noticed that during your Amida, you took a trip mentally to London. So now that you came back, welcome. Now, one of the unique ideas in meditation is being able to focus. I saw a beautiful letter. There was a colleague of mine who had a father who was a great writer, great thinker, a great chassid. And when he was 12th grade, his parents lived in Israel. He was studying in Montreal. And by the way, if you want tea, coffee, drink a snack, feel free, please. And he wrote to his father something that we heard at the Fabrengen at the time, which was where our teacher, as we'll see, especially in meditation is very powerful. But you don't need to study Hasidic thought to focus on a thought. Take a concept in the Talmud and focus in on it, zero in on it. Just to get our minds accustomed to zeroing in on one item and nothing else. And everything else in today's day and age is practically unheard of, that you just shut down and nothing else in the world exists outside of what I'm focused in on this moment, this time. That's what it's all about. So here we go. We're going to be taking a journey, 6 weeks of meditation. We'll learn about ourselves a little more. This class is built on the idea of meditation being something that is part of Jewish life. And we're going to learn throughout about different ideas that relate to this concept of Jewish meditation and thought. I do want to mention that if you may not have the text on your screen, for those who are studying virtually, feel free to take the email, put it into your chat box, and you'll have it right there on the screen. Now, Gavi will get me back to this. Here we go. I want to thank Gavi guys for my son Shalom. Technology, and that is not yet my strength. I'm working on it. My children taught me not to give up hope. So take a moment, and you want to record 3 things you hope to gain through this study. Feel free to write it right into your textbook. 3 things you want to gain. You need a pen? Got a pen there.
I don't have it, Rabbi.
Okay, I'm still here. So now, anybody want to share one or all three of the things you may have this study? Okay.
To look at the conceptual basis of Jewish meditation.
Great. We're gonna definitely session. Yeah.
Whether or not you get that feel of on you.
Let me rephrase your expression. How do we connect, answer the idea? On the one hand, we have the formal text, and on the other hand, we have the idea of prayer being also meditative. How do we make both work? In society at large, meditation means something that's removed from words, from letters. It's not limited. Whereas we'll see, like you said, prayer has words, a formal text. And then you have to also put up with the rabbi's sermon at times. So how do we make that all work together? I do want to mention that growing up in Montreal, New York, the big city, Montreal was a shtetl. Shabbos, during the week, you didn't see people have to run to work. Shabbos was the norm. You walk into the Chabad shul, and there were many, including my father, had his tallis over his head. Hours in deep meditation and prayer. Welcome, asking. So we'll try to gain the Jewish perspective, a foundation to Jewish meditation, the idea of how prayer relates to meditation. We'll definitely try to cover that as we go along the course. For that matter, we'll have a few meditations today as we are learning to be able to connect and relate to it.
Kabbalah come into any for you?
Well, yes, but we'll also study not only from the Kabbalah perspective. We know Kabbalah is, the question was, does Kabbalah come into this? Yes, the Zohar is mentioned, etc. But we'll see that the basis to the Kabbalah, as we know, is there in the revealed dynamics of Torah, and we'll find it in the Talmud. And for that matter, we'll find out in the Talmud. We'll find it as a base to Jewish life. Now, today we're not going to be in an hour and a half of what you call a meditation mini retreat. So therefore, we're not going to be meditating now for the next till 9:30. But rather, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be learning about the tools of meditation. We're going to learn a lot of ideas that allow us to meditate. And for that matter, when and how is it done? You know, they tell the story of two women on a park bench. COVID hits. One turns to the other and says, what's your husband doing? Well, he's working out of the house. He found a virtual job. The other, what's your husband doing? He's out of a job. So what does he do? Is he like unemployed? She says, no. He meditates. What does he meditate? What does he do? Meditate? I'm not sure what it is, but it's definitely being than unemployed. Better than being unemployed. He's meditating. Where do we get this whole thing started? What is meditation? Now, there are some who may have tried it over the years, some who never did, just trying to figure out what it is exactly. And then
You just did, Rabbi.
we're back, right? Okay. And how do we make those calls not come in? You know how to stop calls from coming in, Gabby? Okay. So here we go.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Rabbi, I don't hear you.
I don't hear anything either.
Hi, Bobby.
Hi, hi, Sarah. Well, this is fun. Beautiful picture. I see you. Yeah, I took myself off the picture. Hi, how's everything going?
Good. How you doing? Are you going to give the class?
Which class? This one? I don't think so. I'm here to listen and learn. Yeah. I think when I asked Rabbi to put it on Zoom, he said he has trouble with Zoom.
Well,
So I hope this.
we know that from our other classes.
I hope it's
But they always work out. There he is.
back.
Oh,
Hello.
lost him.
Find a great image of God.
You weren't here for a while.
Says, you hear me? Anybody hear me?
Yes, finally, yes.
What image are you drawing? How do you know what God looks like? He says, well, soon you will know once I draw him. Sometimes we have an image in our mind of what God is. The good old question, did God really do this? Or is this really God? And that's the image. So we may recognize that which we knew or did not know about meditation is not necessarily what it is. The word meditation, if you look it up in the dictionary, could mean a measure, to measure. That's what meditate means. To contemplate, devise, ponder. That's a general idea of measurement, of meditation. Now, in general, whether or not we recognize it, people by nature meditate. In the expression of Chazal, of our sages, machshava m'sheitet es tamid, that our mind
We lost your voice. You're not coming through. Oh, I'm sorry. I asked you to do this, Rabbi. Oh, no wonder he's so upset with this.
Mm.
You look like you had a little helper there.
what am I doing now?
There, oh,
Okay,
Thank
now you're
Oh.
back.
not really. Bill Mueller is back.
No, I'm here. Bill Mo's not here. Leah Mo's here. I'm
Oh,
just using his.
I see a black screen with Bill Mueller.
Yeah, that's her husband. I can hear. Can you hear the rabbi?
Oh, there he is. But we can't hear you, Rabbi.
Okay, is that the screen connected? Can you hear me? I hear you. Oh, I hear you. Good old saying in the rabbi in the middle of the sermon, the guys are talking. You hear me? I say no, but I hear you. So, in general, they say that there are about 6,000 thoughts a day that enter our mind. That's what researchers tell us. 6,000. How many of them do we absorb? Very few. But the mind is constantly working. The mind is always there. But in most cases, we enter into this meditative mode without even preparation. What does it mean, a focused meditation? That we focus on a certain specific idea and we want to see specific results of that meditation. But the question is, meditation is nice, but after all, how does it relate to us as Jews, me as a rabbi? How does it relate to Torah and Torah life? What does this mean to us? So that's really the question we entered into this course, and that is where meditation found in Jewish life. I never studied it in my Sunday school. I may not have even studied meditation as bonus, even in the greatest yeshivas. I may have heard about it. There's even a din, a code of Jewish law, that every morning at service, we have to think about the greatness of the Almighty. But that stays in the book in most or many cases. Whereas, am I really focused in on meditation from a Jewish perspective? What is this? So we actually, when it comes to Jewish meditation, we have a very rich history. It is fundamental in Jewish life. It is a center in Jewish life. And for that matter, from the establishment of us as a people, we were meditating. Where do we see this? Let's go back to Abraham, the first Jew, not Abraham. First Jew, Avraham Avinu. They actually created a whole lifestyle that they should be able to meditate. As you see in text 1, that Why did the patriarchs choose to be separate on page 3, text 1? They chose to be separate, to be alone in the wilderness, so they can be far from people. Why? So they can seclude themselves and meditate. Fascinating, huh? That's why they were Roy Yitzhak and discussed a lot in great length in Hasidic thought. We go on to the next screen, and and I don't have it yet. I only have the first screen. Okay. Yeah, please. In great length, discussed in Hasidic thought, in Kabbalah, that the reason our forefathers were shepherds was they could move from this world. Actually, it's a beautiful expression by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said he would give anything in the world that our yeshivas should be established in the book. So there should be no distractions. I spent the summer in the yeshiva in Morristown, New Jersey. All you have is the yeshiva. There's nothing else. That's it. You have a big campus. You can go from this side of the campus to that side of the campus. But that's life. There's no other distractions. And when I was there in 1992, 93, we didn't have cell phones. There was really no distractions. The biggest distraction was that the payphone outside. That was the distraction. You have to go give the quarter but otherwise there was no distractions. That's what the shepherds wanted all along. So shepherds removed themselves from civilization. But the question is, what is the format of meditation? We still don't have it. Now, we do know that in prayer that there are many different texts of prayer. There's Ashkenaz, Sfard, and within each one, Ari, Chabad. Within each one, there are many different ones. We have a tradition, for example, that the Baal Tanya, the founder of Chabad, chose our text from 60 different texts. It's based on the Arizal. It's Al Pi Nusach Ari, but it's not even exactly the Arizal. Go on to the next screen, please. Kavi, you got it? But rather, so it shows it from 60 different texts of prayer. Now, what is the theme of prayer? Torah tells us you shall serve the Almighty with all your heart. Says the Talmud, what is the easy avodah to believe? What is the service of the heart? Tefillah. Now, what does it mean? It's a meditative tool. So we have a lot of words that we say every day. We have the Amid, we have the Ashrei. Many sadly think that prayer is like a time when, God forbid, you lose a loved one. You're stuck in that. You got to come to shul, whether it's at best 11 months, and then they suddenly disappeared. Sometimes you think they went along with the loved one. They're suddenly gone, and then there's the resurrection once a year at the Yartzeit, the anniversary of passing. They resurrect again, and then boom, we're gone again. We see many things we have to wait for the Messiah to come for the resurrection. We can see it at times every day. You see the guys pop in for the Yartzeit, and then gone. But what is the idea of prayer really? The idea of prayer is a daily meditation. Where does this come from? We actually have a beautiful translation. You'll see on the next screen, please, thank you. Where you have the idea of Hatoifil Kli Cheres. Our sages teach on the idea of prayer. Please continue on the screens, Gavi. That we find on page 4. That what does it mean? Hatoifil Kli Cheres, one who glues an earthenware vessel. So prayer really is the glue of the earthenware vessel. There's also the idea that's mentioned regarding prayer being a time to be judged. When we judge ourselves, it's not only about God judging, but really reflecting on who we are as people. So there is the idea of prayer being introspective. It's an exercise that we do. There's also the idea of a contemplative concept of how to connect to the divine. So today's prayer is really class is not about prayer, but obviously we will touch upon it throughout the course because prayer is one of the times and the tools of meditation. Where do we find this idea of meditation clearly in the Talmud? We find in the tractate of Bracha, the first tractate of the Talmud. We find on page 5 that there were those pious ones who would every day spend 9 hours a day with their prayers. 3 hours each prayer, an hour meditating, an hour praying, and an hour reflecting on the prayer. Actually, the Talmud asked a practical question: how do they earn a living? The side, like how do they earn? It was before they were getting the COVID government funding, So how do they earn a living? And Talmud answers, and for that matter, what about Torah stuff? The Talmud says because they were so connected, their prayer, many times we have to learn, review many times over, so that the Torah are who we are, but they were managed to preserve their Torah. And for that matter, their work was blessed. In today's days, you find it more than ever. This idea of working much less late. How are they covering their bills? Same people used to go to work at 5 in the morning, come back at 10 at night. But there is the idea that at times you find blessing in the way you work. So those who prayed with this intensity, they had this blessing. So we find really that the idea of prayer is definitely a strong tool, a very powerful tool of meditation. Now, so it's great to meditate. How would this advance our Jewish goals? Not saying there's something. What's Jewish about it from your perspective? Any thoughts? Anyone? Any thoughts on the virtual class of what would meditation do? If I am a Torah observer, not whatever I observe as a Jew. I light Shabbos candles, whatever it is. How will meditation enhance it? Is there anything we can do about it? What does it do for me as a Jew? It's a nice concept. Enhance the connection. That's true. What Yitzi is saying that every mitzvah requires intention. For some mitzvahs, the mitzvah is incomplete without the intention. For example, the mitzvah of residing in the sukkah. It's quoted code of Jewish law that part of the mitzvah is that we reflect why we're doing the mitzvah. Every mitzvah, many mitzvahs, we reflect the reason we're doing it because this is what Hashem commanded us. And many will have a big l'shem yichud before every mitzvah prayer in preparation of mitzvah, and that's basically reflecting not about the reason for the mitzvah as much as the idea that it's a tool through which we can connect to the Almighty. That's also a meditative prayer. There is that connection. There is also the side benefits. We may become kinder people. We may become more understanding of God, and as we mentioned, more connecting to God. Our prayer may become something more real than just, at times it's a routine that one runs in and gets it out of the way and runs out. It goes to catch the train, and by the time if they make the train, they already forgot that they were ever in a shul. Here, it's something that's like a real experience that's life transforming. You see a person walks out as a different person after their prayer. Simply, not only they feel different, they are different people. They're transformed people. So there's, in general, we'll break it down to 3 general categories of prayer. There is what's foreign to us, and that's foreign meaning it's forbidden. Forbidden meaning it comes from not only non-Torah sources, but from idolatry, etc. And it relates to idol worship. We know the first of the 10 commandments. First and second of the 10 commandments is about worshiping one God. Then there is what we call a neutral meditation, and that is go to your therapist, go to wherever it is on the avenue. They sit you down on the floor. They tell you to shut your mind down for a few minutes. Enough for me to swipe your credit card and make sure it clears. Or they give you an opportunity to meditate, to think, to shut down, and so on. And then there's what we're going to focus on today, and that is our organically Jewish meditation. And that is recognizing that it's not just about being a better sports person, being stronger, meditating beforehand. I will win this war. I will win this game. But rather connecting on a deeper level and how it relates to my Jewish life, Jewish traditions, and enhancing my practice as a Jew. In other words, the way I do a mitzvah, there are many different ways of doing it. I can do it with excitement. I can be the first one there. I can be the last one to leave. Why? Because I recognize there's something in it that can be enhanced by my meditation. And therefore, we will focus in on this idea and build our meditation all around the idea of categories that relate to Torah. Now, on page 6, you see we have 3 different types of meditation. There is what we call contemplation. There is hisbodedut. Hisbodedut means seclusion. Seclusion, that is a transcendence meditation. Now, we know, for example, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, would at times go into the forest for prayer, just to be totally secluded. Transcending, removed. There is the contemplative meditation, known as hisbodedut. And finally, there is the kavanah. Kavanah, we know, is a mindful awareness, an intent meditation. A meditation that we want, that we're looking, that we're seeking, one that we should see actual, tangible results. And we'll explore today these key areas, today and over the next 6 weeks. And as we go through the 6 weeks, let's start with, I'm going to go over the 6 general points that we'll study. And obviously today we'll focus on number 1. So today's idea is, on our next screen, knowing as mind control. Today we're going to learn how we can actually control our minds. We can control our thoughts. We can, for that matter, navigate and transform thoughts. And we're going to pick today, we're going to learn about the tools, how to transform a negative thought and allow ourselves, enable ourselves to be totally positive. You know, it's easy to say, think positive. Think positive means I have negative ideas that I have to deal with. Health, parnosa, nachas, whatever it is, life, whatever in simple English, what we call in today's day and age life. Everyone has their pekel, as we call it, their little package that they carry throughout life. And we have to deal with it. And at times it can wear someone down. And more times than others will wear someone down. And we have to, so that's going to be today's class. Then let's go over a quick description of the other 5 classes. We're going to learn about living in the moment. We're going to be learning in depth about being mindful to be able to value every moment. We're going to learn about the spirituality of life. We're going to learn in lesson 4, bringing meditation to our life, meaning that we're going to see practical ideas, how every day we will live with a purpose as a result of our meditation. In lesson 5, we're going to reflect how meditation helps us to recognize the divine presence in our life and how that can lead to the ultimate joy, how that can lead to resilience and give us a purpose in life. And finally, in lesson 6, we're going to learn active meditations. We're going to learn about the connection between meditating and action and how we are enhanced, whether as a Jew or as a person. And obviously, as a Jew, we cannot separate the two because that's what this is living like a Jew. And we're going to recognize how meditation helps everyone do a mitzvah. A person can be a walking Talmud. In Yiddish, there's the expression "ashasi," a walking Talmud. But at the same time, they say the person about this story about a guy who came to be interviewed as a rabbi. So he left a position, came to another shul. So the president who was going to interview the rabbi asked his past president, "What's this rabbi?" He says, "Wow, this rabbi, I'm malach, an angel." Well, they interview him. Not great, but they're relying on an angel. And they say, he's totally not a mensch. So they call the guy, say, "What do you mean an angel?" He says, "A mensch, definitely not. A mensch, sicher nicht." So now, we want to make sure one could be a Torah professor. Or one could be a professor on good life. Or whatever it is. But at the same time, are they living it? Are they what they're preaching? For that matter, is what they are preaching actually forming their life? That's what we're going to learn, is the idea of meditation. So now, Jewish meditation is focused on the idea of strengthening our relationship with our Creator. But there's also side benefits, obviously. It's not only, we live in this physical world. So the meditation, Esther, you're good so far? Esther? You're good? Oh, good. Okay. I hope all on the screen are doing okay. So far, so good. Okay, we're smiling. Okay. Let's continue further here. Okay. We're doing quite good. We've got about 10 minutes of the screen so far. Okay. It also helps us to live a balanced living, a healthy living, and extremely important to us as Jews. Now, many times people go and seek meditation. Why meditation's over. Well, they feel some pressure. They had a negative experience. They're looking to enhance their relationship with their spouse, with their neighbor. They're looking to kill their neighbor, not have any guilt, so they'll meditate beforehand. I'm not sure, whatever it is. They're looking, there's a something that's troubling them, you can say. And they're looking for the meditation. So everybody wants a happy life. And in life, everybody experiences negative experiences throughout life. And they definitely influence the way we think. As a result, one can have anger, feel hurt, anxiety, worry, frustration, self-doubt. And then you go with a list of unwanted feelings. And that influences our life. So today we're going to learn about the foundation of the meditation. As a Jew, how they can help us focus our lives so we can overcome all negative feelings. And for that matter, to make of us a positive person. Positive means throughout only seeing the positive in everything. I'm going to tell the story of a guy who was teaching the Talmud. And he was talking about what the Mishnah in Talmud teaches about how we have to thank God for everything good or the opposite. Great idea. One day, this teacher not only had a teaching job, but that doesn't cover the bills. So he was also in the lumber business. And in the old days, they would take lumber down the river, and you had to hope it was a gamble. Either it made it to its destination, or the wood fell apart and you lost it. And God helps that his whole money was put into a shipment, and it all sunk. He lost the lumber. So now it's trying to break it to him. How's he going to live with this? So one of his prime students said, I will break it. Last week he gave us a class about this. Thank God. And I'm going to go to yeshiva, meets the teacher or class, and he says, last week you taught us in the class about thanking God for everything good and the opposite. Can you refresh that class? I need to know more about it. Sure, because the whole philosophy. He says, and what if a huge tragedy happens? Someone says, well, if it came from God, it's all good. It's going. What if a person took all of his money, made an investment, and lost it all? Then what do you do then? He says, well, obviously, thank God, it's all good. The person should be happy. He has the opportunity, thank God. So the student says to him, well, if that's the case, today you have the opportunity to be the ultimate happiness that you just described, because you lost everything. He says, what do you mean? He says, well, that shipment of lumber you had? It all sunk and you lost it all, so let's dance. And the guy faints. The teacher faints. And they try to wake him up, nothing. Finally, they get him back on his feet and they say, you just gave us this philosophy, it was so exciting. You can have moments of joy and opportunity, thank God. He said, what is it? He says, well, that was the theory, but the lumber was my money. That's a different story. Now, we are going to try and take this meditation. God should help, everything should be positive. But we're going to learn how everything we see and experience and life should be positive, and recognize that everything is positive in life. And at times there's a battle, we can change that. Now, in action, it's easy to change something. In other words, person gets hurt, they go to the doctor, they get cured. That's it, they're healed. Person needs a medical treatment, they're healed. But then there's thoughts, and there are fears. And a person at times is scared. How do you deal with that? And dealing with a feeling is not something you can be told to deal with, because the feeling is still there. So we see in Torah a fascinating idea in text 3. In text 3 in Torah, page 8, we see that there was the spiritual chaplain known as the Kohen who led the people to battle. Obviously, they're going to be on the front lines. What does he tell them? Don't fear. Why? Because the Almighty is with you. Don't fear. And what if the guy is scared? How am I told not to fear? I can say, guy says, look, you may be scared at times, but just move ahead. Don't let the fear get to you. Recognizing there is fear, but you're on the front lines. The country's counting on you. Move it ahead. Do what you got to do. Forget about your feelings till later. You go for therapy, we'll take care of it. No, that's not what he tells me. He says, don't fear. How does it mean that I should control my emotional extent that I'm not scared? That I'm totally good. I'm fine. There are many different people who will say different suggestions. But today we're going to look at this. It may seem simple. We're going to see from a Torah perspective really a great ultimate solution in how to overcome the idea that's not only the fear that I'm putting aside for a moment, but I really do not have the fear. That I'm really good. I can really do it. According to Jewish mysticism, every person is comprised of 10 functions. Now, I just want to mention, emphasize, there is no Jewish mysticism that's not based on Torah, not based on the revealed dynamics of Torah. And it's all extracted from Torah. To the extent that we know, it's a general rule. The author of the Zohar was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We know the general rule is that when there's a disagreement in Talmud, which we find at like every line of the Talmud, we always follow the majority. The exception when we don't follow the majority is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He was so well versed in the Talmud, in the revealed dynamics of Torah, that when he said something, even if the whole world disagreed, the code of Jewish law is according to him. So in other words, when he wrote the Zohar, he had a tremendous spiritual Torah connection. And it's all there from Torah. So we find that there are 10 general functions in a human being. Please turn this to the screen that has the map of the 10 functions. There we go. We have a general overview of the map. And when you're seeing it, just to give you a general what each of these 10 powers, how it is translated, we have wisdom, we have the understanding, knowledge, severity, kindness, and love. We have harmony, compassion, splendor and humility, victory and ambition, connection, and the ultimate royalty, receptiveness. These are the 10 general powers. Now, in general, these functions are subdivided. We have what we know as the 3 intellectual capacities, Chochmah, Bina, Da'as, which is, as we learned, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And then you have the 7 emotional responses. We find a discussion in Talmud, just on a side note. The Talmud asks, why is it that when we say the separation prayer from Shabbos and Yom Tov, going into the weekday Shabbos and Jewish holidays, we have it there, Midah, by the blessing of knowledge. Thanking God for granting us knowledge. And then we go into the separation prayer. What's the connection? Why don't we say it when we mention usually Rosh Chodesh? That's where we add prayers.
In that, you need to have the discernibility to be able to make a differentiation. I believe that's
Dr. Yeager says, Imein Das Abdul, not the Gemara says. We also learned some Gemara Chabad, not too much. We had it at Brisk Gezeit. Anyway, so Brisk Gezeit from Brisk. So the Talmud teaches that in order to make a distinction, you must have knowledge. At times, people can be brilliant, yeah, but there's somewhat of a disconnect. They don't have the power of distinction. For example, you'll take an absent-minded professor and try and get him to relate to a young child. The Rebbe of blessed memory would address children with that same passion and connection as he did to the greatest leaders. He connected with them on their level, and with the young children at the children's rallies, you can watch them online today, on their level, because there's a connection. Now, same as when you have emotions and intellect, you need to connect the two. For example, a person knows, anybody in this room smoke? Anybody online smoke? I don't want to bring an example of something that smoking is unhealthy. I think it's according to all as of now. Today's days, you got to watch what you say about health and unhealth. I don't know. It's theoretically, if we were to say that according to all, smoking is unhealthy, theoretically, let's see what my coverage is on the insurance. And a guy can speak about the theory of how, God forbid, smoking causes lung cancer, and he can be a chain smoker. What happened here? There's no das. That philosophy does not connect. And therefore, it doesn't lead to, or he didn't allow it to connect. Not that he doesn't have the capacity, but he did not allow it to connect. So now you have this idea, the general concept of the subdivision of 10 powers. You have the 7 emotional ones and the 3 intellectual ones. Now, the intellectual ones obviously reflect and represent the idea of the mind. The emotional is the heart. But at times you need the mind to create feelings. The thought relates to, creates the feelings. In other words, if I see someone who I see what they accomplished, let's say, and how much they're doing for my children, and for my yeshiva, my school, my community, I really like them. If I see a guy in the street corner who's selling drugs to minors, I really despise their actions. We can't despise a person, but we can despise their actions. Because every person, ultimately, we have to leave them room for tshuva, for repentance and return. So in other words, my thoughts created a feeling to the one way or the other. As we can see in the next screen, so is in the soul. There is the understanding of feelings, of thoughts that create emotions and feelings. As explained in Tanya, text 4, we have page 11, that the emotions are an offspring of the intelligence, which means simply, an animal has no control of their emotions. We know the classic Nachmanides story, right? With the mice and the cat, whether there's a teva sheni by an animal, if they create a second nature is as powerful as a first nature. And the bottom line was that the Nachmanides comes to a room, there were cats who were trained to be like humans, and he threw out a few mice, and they all disappeared and ran after the mice. At the same time, a human has the power to have a totally transformed idea where they can make their second nature, could become a first nature if they work hard enough on it. Now, in our mind, we understand something. So we start judging it. We start evaluating it. We start estimating what it's worth to us. For example, a certain behavior, a certain act. So now, if we feel that something intellectually, something scares us, it's dangerous, then we're scared. Take, for example, a roller coaster on a simple level. 2 children are in an amusement park. One child loves the roller coaster because they never thought of it as anything that can endanger them or that will scare them. So to them, it's great. The other one can't stand it. Resents, can't believe anybody would go on it. Because to them, they in their mind, they already made up their mind that there's a power, that there's something scary about it. There's also another idea, and that is we have the active consciousness for the soul. And that has 3 general powers outlets, known as machshava, dibur, and maisa, known as thinking, speaking, and action and doing. Now, why are they called in the Kabbalah they're referred to as garments? What is a garment? A garment is something that hopefully we change every once in a while. As we hope. A person can change the garment of their thoughts. It's not the power of intellect. Their thought process, they can change. It's up to them to make it work. And we'll learn about the right tools that I can change my thought process about myself, about others, about the world at large, about certain ideas and ideals that I may have in the world. Whatever it is, I don't want to bring examples because everything today's day and age is like controversial. And the only thing I know is the coffee is great and nobody's going to argue with that. If you do, then it's a lost cause for me. But anyway, but it's any example one brings, the Talmud discusses. And many even at the turn of the 20th century felt that way. In the Talmud, there was a garment that people would wear tied on their neck to make themselves look fat, heavy. Because that was a sign of strength. That was, if you look big, a few hundred pounds overweight, obese, that was a strong person. In today's day and age, the mindset changed on some level, it seems, at least for some. We were once at a family Shabbos getaway with a happy occasion in a hotel here not far. And there was a gathering. We saw people that were literally a whole group, maybe 100 people, huge, humongous. And we learned later there's a group called, I think, Size or Weight Acceptance. We looked it up online. That the bigger you are, the more accepted you are in society. Now, each to their own. Obviously, everyone has their challenges. But the idea was there was a mind shift. Why should the weight and my size bother me? If I could just make it an acceptable idea, make it what they calling to sound cool, sound fashionable, and that's it. And all good. A few years ago, clothing you wore had to be loose. Today, the tighter you wear it, the less garment you have on you, and the more you choke in it, you'll notice. I mean, you try and put on a suit. You're lucky if your foot can fit through it, right? What happened? Because the mindset changed. Now, the thought process can go on and that. But we need an operating system to make that happen. So take, for example, you have a phone. You have a phone that has a system. And the system is that as we switch the screen, different ideas come up. Similar in our mind. We can have that system. The mind has garments where we can always activate different strengths that we have. We can analyze from different perspectives. So these strengths can always be accessed on every level. And when we focus in on something, at that moment, everything else is dormant. Whatever we are focusing in, that's who we are at that moment. So if I'm preoccupied, agonizing about something, so my emotions are now activated in something that's not positive, and everything else becomes inactive. As we can see in our meditation number 1.
Oh, it's a video?
Yeah. I asked yes, so I there we go.
Thoughts produce feelings.
So, Sinai Lesson, echo. No echo. Sinai, but it's quick. The idea of moich shalat al alev, mind over matter, and the mind controlling the matter. There was a beautiful story told about a chosi, the disciple of the Maggid of Mezrich. And he came to him and asked him for advice. How do you control one's thoughts? Instead of giving him an answer, the Maggid lived at time Mezrich sent him to Zhitomir. I told him, go to Reb Velvula in Zhitomir, Reb Zev, and he will help you deal with this matter of controlling your thoughts. So he goes to Zhitomir, comes there, knocks on the door after a long trip, no answer. But he sees Reb Vel through the window, he's right there next to the door. No answer. Knocks. He waits there for a long time. So finally the Reb opens the door with a big smile, Shalom Aleichem, welcomes him into the house. All is good. This disciple takes a few days, he recovers from his journey, and he turns to the Reb and says, our teacher sent me here. You can give me a lesson how to control my thoughts. Can you help me out? He says, well, I taught it to you before you enter the house. Whatever you don't want to let in, you just keep the door closed and keep it out. In other words, yes, we have a credit, especially in our days, in everyone's days, there's a crazy world with a lot of thoughts and emotions that go through one's mind. We can, if we want to, we can, and we should be in control of our thoughts. And those thoughts ultimately will be in control of our emotions, because the emotions are an extension of the thought. Now, unconscious thoughts at times create personalities. They create judgments, they create feelings, and therefore one reacts in a manner that's beyond their control at that moment. But everybody can learn how to have a disciplined thought process and to have, as much as possible, deliberate thoughts. And one is in control of every thought, in control of every detail. They process their thinking the way they would like to process it. As a result, they can also control their emotions by extension of their thoughts. There's a beautiful idea that Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, he had a mechutin and follower, Reb Shlomo Freitas, who was suffering from an illness. And he said, he wrote to his master that at this point he feels he's just going to remove his anguish by strengthening himself in prayer. Because he recognizes this anguish is really having a negative impact on him. And here his Rebbe's teacher gives him a surprise answer. A beautiful letter, page 14, text 6, where he basically gives him the general gist that yes, you need prayer, but you also have to stop that thought of fear. That will dissolve your life in anguish. The prayer will help. But remember, there's the koyach hamachshava, the power of thought. And he concludes, it's worth training yourself to remove all negativity, for we must rid ourselves from all fear. Imagine, you're writing to your Rebbe about, you're going to enhance your prayer. You would think I'm connecting with God, and that will be the best solution. He says, it's a good solution, but that's not enough. Don't destroy it on God. God will help. But remember, we have a piece of the puzzle to play. Let us work on our own thoughts to remove all fears and all negativity. And when we know who we are, and when we recognize that we have as much conscious thinking as possible, then we can actually disconnect from that attention that we give to negative feelings. which ultimately hurt us, limit us, don't allow us to function. And we can now exchange the garment of thought for something that's extremely positive. We can be in control. There was a great student of the Baal Tanya, the Moshe Meisels. And the Moshe Meisels knew many languages, including French. Back in Russia, it was a rare phenomenon. Now we know that during the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya's era was the historic war between the Tsar and Napoleon. And amongst the tzaddikim of the generation, the rabbis, there was a discussion, what would be best for the Jews? Who should win? French or Russian? Basically, sum it up in a nutshell. France was known for its hakshama, materialism. It was known for its atheistic approach to life. Russia was a poor country. They figured if Napoleon wins, at least Jews would have it good on a material level. But the Baal Tanya was concerned that spiritually they would not have it good. So he actually suggested that his great follower, the Moshe Meisels, should infiltrate himself as a spy for the Russian government. He should get himself into the French government. So he got himself into being in the secret meetings with Napoleon and his top people of strategy. And one day Napoleon feared that something was going on. So he ran into a meeting, put his heart on the Moshe Meisel's heart. Are you spying for Russia? And the Moshe Meisel responded, Your Majesty, I'm here because I'm a translator. I speak French. That's why I'm here to translate French and Russian languages, and went on and on. Didn't say no. And Napoleon left the room. Moshe Meisel was asked, how did he manage to maintain the same heartbeat when he was being accused of something that would cost him his life, being a spy, espionage? So he said, well, I learned Hasidic thought. The base of Hasidic thought is moyach shalit alalev, mind over matter. I should control my emotions. At that moment, I thought, if it's not now, then why did I learn this? But he took it to an extreme that it literally saved his life, which is beyond, you would say, human capacity. And he taught, no. That is what it's about. It is the human capacity. So at times, one will say, I have a negative thought, I have a negative emotion. Let me reason with it. But reasoning with it is like quicksand. You never get out of it. So what does one do? Like a phone call. You get a call from all these cold calls. We're not interested in them. Click, hang up. Does that mean I'm shoving it under the rug? How do I deal with this at the end of the day? And at the end of the day, it is something that's troubling me. So how do I disconnect from it? It's something internally. So we know a fascinating idea, a classic response, given also by the Tzemach Tzedek. And that is, you see in text 7, page 16. There's more than one thing to think about in life. Or we only have one mind, one thought process. And we can't think about two things at the same time. So just switch over to another thought. Instead of thinking about the negative experience I had, think about like he said earlier in the meditation, think about the happy days that I had. Replace that thought. Always have something to think about that's positive, happy, joyous, meaningful. And as soon as I feel anything negative in any way attacking me on any level, I can get rid of it. I can prevent it from the beginning. When I think about the positive ideas. And that we do by simply having something positive in our mind at all times. There was a behavior in past, a tradition, that we always had something in our mind, a Torah thought, a Talmudic thought, a thought of something I heard, something on the portion that I always have. My mind is constantly working, but let's make sure that there's something positive. It mentioned in Kabbalah, Hasidic thought, the mind is like fire. It'll burn forever. But let it not burn out. Make sure you always have material that it can burn. Give it some good wood. Always have something in your mind, something positive, something real. Thank God in today's day and age, we have it all in this little gadget right here. Whatever we need, don't turn on the news. Anything good does not make headlines. The news, you ever walk away saying, gee, something great happened? When you turn on the headlines, I don't know, it's 6 o'clock news, whatever it is, 8 o'clock news, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, turn it on. What's there? This one murdered, this one killed. There's nothing happy about it. You walk in and the world is coming to an end. And then if nothing else, then COVID, there's a new variant of COVID coming up. So it's not sticking your head in the sand. It's just, do I want to live a positive life or not? If I want to deal with negative rats, then I can always just stick in the garbage, stay in the garbage, and always be there. It will stink. And at times I even get used to it. I think that's the real life. There's a Gemara, the Talmud in Kiddushin discusses that if a guy marries a woman and then she learns that he is working with hide, skin, animal skin, has a horrible. It's not even grounds for divorce. The marriage was never a marriage in the first place because nobody wants to live with that. Yeah, it's needed, or at least some people like it. They like fur, whatever it is. Can't say it's needed. It's not made out of celery, but whatever it is. But just because this person got used to it and maybe even making a living and a very good living from this, it doesn't make it a good smell, a good aroma. And therefore, I never accepted someone like that to be my spouse. I don't even need it. Now, today's day and age, obviously, you may work with a different. I wouldn't say, based on that, once you walk away from marriage, say I don't need a divorce. That's going to discuss with the local rabbi. I know the situations are the same. But the idea is, just because I'm living in dirt, it doesn't make it any cleaner. But I could work on myself to live in a clean environment, to create a clean environment. That's up to me. Always take along a picture of family, of friends, good days, and you reflect on that, and that helps us give us a good feeling. And the Tzemach Tzedek continues to say that ultimately, not only does it impact me, but as you see in text 8, it can impact the world around you. What does that mean? That our thoughts, our approach, our attitudes is what brings about the mood that I'm in. But we also have, as in this text, there's a great story of the Tzemach Tzedek being told by his grandfather not to sing sad songs. In other words, yes, there is Tisha B'Av every year when we mourn the destruction of the temple. But we can't walk around all year being sad. At times, we give ourselves those moments of reflection, to reflect, to recharge, but then the rest of the life must be a happy life. And the truth is, it's not only something that's discussed in Hasidic thought. There's by Chabad, there's the Levitzak of Bardichev. Past time we just had the chus to be in the merit to be at his gravesite. And he says, based on the verse, saying Psalm Hashem Shomrecha, God is your guardian, Hashem Tzilcha, God is your shadow. What does it mean God is my shadow? That I make things happen. And whatever I do here has an impact on the world around us. So it's not just that I am becoming a different person, a happy person, a positive person, but I'm creating a spiritual energy in the world that is happy, not only around me, but I'm drawing energy from sources that I could not do on my own earlier by my attitude, by my approach, by recognizing my strengths that I have. Now, it's not something new, but rather there's a spiritual science to this. We learned about our faculties earlier, and we learned how the soul utilizes these faculties to relate to the world as a source of strength, and so on. I think we need the next screen. I think we're up to that. Thank you. My tech staff right here. By the way, this is what we call a pen, paper. I know it's the old generation. Anyway, So our 10 strengths of the soul reflect what we say in the Mishnah and Ethics of our fathers, that the world was created by 10 utterances, 10 strengths, 10 powers. In other words, the soul strengths are a reflection of God's strength. And just like God, an infinite creator, needed, you can say, channels to relate to a finite world, and he does it through his strength known as chesed, kindness, being benevolent, gevura, being judgmental, judging how much strength the world should not explode. So too we have that strength. So we relate to God's 10 strengths and the strength of our soul. There's a fascinating medrash that he quotes in text 9. You have it on page 19, where you have a glass, and the king doesn't know. You fill the glass with hot water, it'll break. Fill it with ice cold water, crack. What do? Lukewarm water. God created a world. Can't just have the attribute of judgment, which would mean holding back energy from the world. You can't just have the attribute of kindness, giving it unlimited, because then there'll be no world in existence. A finite world cannot relate to an infinite. So God created that blend, that merge of known as Tiferes, which is the merge of compassion, and that we have exactly enough, there should be a world. And we have that unique power that we can shift at times. When there's an attribute of judgment, we can shift it to more kindness. Why? Because we were created in God's image. And therefore we have 10 strengths similar to that reflection of the image of God above. And we can align ourselves with those infinite strengths. And each time that we do, we actually, you can say, stay. Remember, years ago, I went onto a plane that was a 9-seater, I think. And they asked each person how much they weigh. And based on that, they sat you down. I got to tell you, I did say some final prayers on that flight because, yeah. It's like, but that's, on a spiritual sense, that's our world. We have the power to relate to energies and to infuse this world with spiritual energies that are godly, because we are godly, our soul is godly. We find that idea actually in the Talmud. For example, the Talmud tells us in the tractate of Shabbos that when we judge our colleague in a meritorious fashion, we are judged with merits. What does it mean? It's not just tit for tat, but it's we're drawing that energy into the world of schusim, of merits. Same as the Talmud says, kol ha'mavir al midos, of one who is easygoing, you can say, in loosely translated. The Almighty is easygoing with it. It's not just tit for tat. It's not just getting even, so to say, but it's rather we're creating a reality. We're drawing this reality into the world. And actually, we find that in the Zohar, fascinating Zohar that I'll read for you, student page 20, text 10. Did I put everyone to sleep? I hope not. So far, so good. So what does the Zohar say? The Zohar says, our world is always ready to receive the spiritual flow that emanates from above. And he continues, the upper world provides in accordance with the emotional state below in this world. If the state below is joyous, then correspondingly abundance flows from above. But if the state below is one of sadness, then correspondingly the flow of blessing is constricted. We are therefore directed to serve God with joy, because mortal joy elicits corresponding supernal joy. There were wars in Israel. 6-day war, the Yom Kippur War. Many rabbis came out, fast. You know what the Rebbe said? Rejoice. We want to have sad, judgmental energy, or do we want to have that flow of kindness and joy? So sure, we have to pray. Sure, we have to do more mitzvahs, but do it with simcha, do it with joy, because we can create so much more by joy. You know what the Talmud says about Rosh Hashanah? Day of Judgment. What does the Talmud say? Quotes the verse in Nehemiah. Go and rejoice. The Talmud says, get dressed not in your sad clothing. Many traditional funeral people wear black, dark clothing. No, you come to Rosh Hashanah, Shul's Day of Judgment, dress joyous clothing. Actually, the shofar is not only a sound of judgment, but it's a sound of joy. It's a musical instrument, according to many. Why is that? Because we elicit these strengths by the way we act. We create them. We draw it from above. It's there. We are the ones who connect with it with our attitude. we have that spiritual power that the Almighty God gave us to create us in His image, that we can it's not only an act that we're creating, but we are bringing a new reality to this world. It's not something that's just a myth or a fantasy, but it's real. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that just focus your mind, direct your mind in a way that it will elicit a response from above. Take, for example, a television. Every master bedroom must have at least 2 televisions. Because if you have one, you're going to fight. One likes Fox News, the other one likes CNN, the place, I don't know. That's why we have none. For that matter, I'm never home to watch it, so it's good. It all works out. We were raised without it, thank God. Right? That's how we raise our children. But take it, for example, television. Behind the channel, there's always something happening. But I can turn the channel to what I want to see. And that's how I see the world, through that channel. Because I opened that channel. Lahavdil, in spiritual life, in human life, it's also that way. We can channel our energies the way we want it. It's up to us. At times it takes a lot of discipline, and we have to have what to replace it. We can't just say, okay, I have negative thoughts, I'm going to fight it with what? I need to have something meaningful to be able to have with what, not only to fight it, but to live by it. It's not a life of battles. It's life to live, life to enjoy. And therefore, how am I going to enjoy it? By living a meaningful life. And that's what we see from the Baal Shem Tov in text 11, where he relates to the verse of Psalm, Haboteach b'Hashem chesed sevenu, one who trusts God will be enveloped in kindness. What does this mean? So the Baal Shem Tov explains very fascinating that we are attached to what we contemplate. So if we contemplate kindness, trust in God, that's what we'll have. We'll see things from a very different perspective. We will have that. We will rejoice in that. Now, again, many are, let's say, living. People should get their professional help. I'm not saying no, God forbid. I'm not here to be the therapist. But the idea of many living in a negative world, it could be because they weren't taught that there's something positive they can live with. Not to live with, they can enjoy and really enjoy every moment of it. You know, one of our heroes in today's day and age is Rabbi Yitzhak Hertz. Nebuchadnezzar, tied to his bed. Tied to his bed. With his eyes, he's sending messages to the whole world. No, but first thing, always listening. One of the worst things that a person can have is when they don't feel a purpose in life. He still has a purpose. We all have a purpose. And we have a purpose no matter who it is. How does it say? How did God prove we matter? Because we're here. Otherwise, we would not be here. The fact that He put us in this world, the Rebbe taught us to celebrate birthdays. And many say a birthday is a depressing day. They have to start thinking what happened this past year, especially as you reach the numbers, the young numbers of 18, 19, 20. Remember? Anyway, it becomes, and the Rebbe said, no, celebrate a birthday. It's not just celebrating her, I was born. It's celebrating that I matter, that I have a purpose, that I have a mission, that I'll be able to do it, that I can do it, that I was empowered with it. So it's very, very powerful on every level that we can be mashpia, we can bring kindness upon us by living a perfectly positive life. And that's all within hand's reach. We can take a moment, we have to just create the mental space of positivity in our lives. And that will make us positive. That will enhance who we are. That will create a positivity. And with this, we can live every moment of our day knowing that we can, and therefore we should control our thoughts, which means I can't just go and say the circumstances created who I am. I created who I am. Yes, God gave me life. God gives me everything I have. But how I deal with it, nobody will be judged by what they have. But people may be judged or judge themselves by how they're dealing with the matters. And that's really up to every individual. And that we can do at any moment of the day, even when we do, bless you, even when at times, thank you, even when at times we don't feel positive, we can transform it. And that in itself actually creates a channel of positivity to the world. We have a tradition as Jews. We wake up in the morning, thank you, God, for returning my soul. We continue, morning blessing. Thank you for giving me clothing. Thank you for giving me the roots of the understanding to wake me up. But you go on and on and on. what seems life. Everybody goes on the train their suit and tie. I'm sure some people do. Some are wearing their sweats or the t-shirts, whatever it is. But everybody, the world, it seems society, what am I saying here? And the answer is, I'm creating a frame of mind of positivity, of gratefulness, of thankfulness, of recognizing the blessings that we have, appreciation. And that is really, it's a psychological idea, obviously, in addition to the fact that we have a mitzvah, a idea to thank God for everything that we have. There is that positivity idea psychologically that not only does help us psychologically, but actually invites more positive energy to us and to the world around us, as we can see in the next meditation too.
Very credible psychological sources on page 23, just for the record. Very impressive.
It's a great course.
Lesson 1.
Want to mention, I understand those who are virtual may not be hearing the video. We will send it to you by email. Meets Hashem, God willing, tomorrow, and I'm sure you will enjoy. So we're learning today a lot about the spiritual technology of helps us enhancing our lives. And when we utilize these tools of meditation, yes, in addition to living a better spiritual life, we'll have a more relaxed life. We'll be able to control our thoughts, our emotions. But you need discipline. So what I would suggest is let's take an exercise this week as follows. First of all, let's be aware of our thoughts. Meaning that we're going to try to simply control our thoughts. Simply not only respond to feelings that come as a result of a negative thought, but in general, to have focused thoughts and should be focused for the good. You know, the Rebbe would suggest, for example, in an office, on the center of your desk, you have a charity box. If I may suggest, Chabad of the Five Towns. But what is the idea? I'm not just coming to work. I have a purpose here. I'm making the world a better place. Yes, I'm sustaining my family and I'm paying their tuition bills. I'm raising grandchildren and whatever else I'm doing. But the focus of everything is I'm here to make the world a better place. So right away from the beginning, the attitude changes. In a car, we have a charity box. In the glove compartment, we start each day, put something into a charity box. You have a prayer book wherever you go, in the car, in the office. If you're surrounded by purposeful ideas, I do everything with a purpose, even though my dealings across the board are there with a purpose and a mission. Also, invest our mind in wholesome things. We can't just expect a thought to be positive without having positive thoughts. So we have to really take a good book. It could be The Sledgehammer by David Friedman, bestseller. Could even be better, a Torah book. I mean, I think even David would agree that a Torah book would be much more used. But either way, utilize ideas, thoughts, material that gives us positive thinking. And last but not least, set aside time daily, whether in the morning when we start our day, if one can't in the morning, whenever one can, set aside time daily for the next week to simply meditate. Take a thought, a concept, delve into it, and shut down the world, meaning shut down the phone. For those few moments or as long as you designate, to simply have that disciplined thought to focus in on all that Hashem has given us. Now you see, as I mentioned in page 22 and 23, you have a lot of great ideas and thoughts in addition to the additions following the course that I would highly recommend that you review. Great material. And now we go for the key points of the class. And again, I want to mention to all of those who are watching virtually that all that you haven't heard recorded will be sent to you in Mitzvah Hashem, God willing, tomorrow by email. Every Tuesdays at 8 o'clock. Questions, concerns?
You send the
Sure.
daily meditations.
You got it. We'll send it out to you. I have your email address. We'll do the session. It's really, I must say, these courses are tremendously powerful. I think a lot of what we learn years in yeshiva, that amazing how they manage to put it together in the most practical fashion. I just have fun. Thank you.
No comparative topics here. Not comparing. There's
no comparative religion, but at the same time, anything positive that's there in other religions is there in Torah. But there's no comparative religion.
Encourage debates or
very rarely. There was Rabbi Dr. Emmanuel Shochat, who had a bracha from whatever. I remember once being at a debate between Rabbi Dr. Shochat from Toronto, Allah Hashem, blessed memory, at Yale University, debating a Reform rabbi. At the end of the debate, the Reform rabbi turned to him and said, "Had I known you when I was younger, I probably would have been a Chabad rabbi." He took him.
It's a chef about.
It's panos. No, not at all. You notice in our Nusach and Oleinu, many say in Oleinu that they bow to a God without power. What is our Nusach? Lehav Avadik. Empty.